What's up, traders? Anthony Crudele here, and welcome to Futures Radio Show. In today's podcast, we are going to be focusing on mastering trading psychology. My guests for today's panel are the author of The Mental Game of Trading, Jared Tendler, full-time trader, author of The Blueprint to Trading Psychology, Alan Edward, and trading coach and author of his new book, The Trading Mind Wheel, Michael Lamothe. Today's podcast is sponsored by FTSE Russell and TradeStation. FTSE Russell is the home of the Russell 2000 Index. Did you know that with an 81% share and a 1.6 trillion in institutional assets benchmark, the Russell 2000 is the top choice by far among institutional investors. Like all Russell US indexes, it's a rules-based, transparent, and reliable, regularly updated to the latest IPOs and annually rebalanced. We got the Russell Recon actually coming up here in a few months. For more info, go to FTSERussell.com. If you're a serious futures trader and you want a powerful platform to match your skills, enjoy flexibility and trading power with TradeStation's award-winning platform, learn more at TradeStation.com/Anthony. There's also 50% off on there for commissions for life. So definitely go to TradeStation.com/Anthony to see what we've got going on there. But before I get the panel in here today, I want to remind all of you that Futures Radio Show podcasts are recorded and posted on iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere you listen to the podcasts, your podcasts these days. And throughout today's live discussion, subscribers to this channel can ask us questions in the chat. So please take a quick second and subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel, and hit that like button as I look forward to chatting with all of you throughout today's show. So now let me bring in the group. We're going to bring in, we got Alan in here, we've got Jared, and we've got Michael. What's up, guys?
Hey, everybody. Good to see you.
Yeah, how's it going?
Well, Alan's the first time in the show. Alan, what's up, my friend? How you doing, man?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've been following you on Twitter, and I know that you follow the other guys, and we all follow each other and see what's going on in there. And we're a group of guys that talk a lot about trading psychology. What I love about today's discussion is that I have three guys that wrote books and focus a lot of their social media on trading psychology, on mindset. And so what I want to do today is start off with that question that everybody always has, and I still get slack for it. On Twitter, people say, Anthony, you talk an awful lot about trading psychology, talk more about posting trades or technicals. And I do that stuff too, right? But the one thing that I've learned is that I can show somebody a technical strategy and they could learn it. And even though I'm making money with it, that doesn't mean that they'll make money. And I'm sure all three of you guys have experienced that. It's such an interesting thing, right? You could sit there right there by somebody and you could do a trade or teach someone something, and then they go and they can't execute it. And you're like, why is that the case? And so then therefore it brings up trading psychology. And I think that everybody out there listening, one of the things that a lot of people ask, especially when you get to that newer and intermediate trader, is, Anthony, how does trading psychology actually help me make money? I'm in this business to make money. Why do I need to read books about trading psychology from Jared, Michael, and Alan? Why do I need to read all these tweets? What is all of this about? Can't you just show me buy and sell and go from there? But we all know, and I think most people out there listening understand this, right? And we've got actually one of the guys I know who's come a long way in his career, Dan, who's in the chat, and I'm sure he'll be chatting with us a long way, and he understands how important trading psychology is. So I think what we do is we start off and we just go around, and I go to each one of you and say, tell the traders, how can trading psychology actually help you make money and become a better trader? Alan, you're the new guy on the block, first time on the show. We'll start with you today.
Cheers. So yeah, so trading psychology, the understanding of your emotions and behavior and how it can affect your trading is a superpower that few achieve. Because if you understand your sabotaging behaviors, it can only improve your trading. So yeah, trading's a mental game, and if you have a short mental game, then it's only going to improve your trading. I mean, the statistics say, 90% traders fail. So it's obviously not because of the technicals, because there's numerous out there. So obviously it is mental. So yeah, that's why trading psychology is so important. Because if it was all about the strategy, everyone would be millionaires.
And I want to stay with you just for a second because I know I want to go around the panel and talk about that. But at what point, and I think this is also something that you guys can discuss when we talk about this, does that become a reality to you as a trader?
So can you repeat that, Anthony?
Well, at what point did that become a reality to you as a trader? That
For
trading
me
psychology
personally,
actually mattered.
oh, well, I think after years of doing the same things over and over and realizing things weren't working, then you sort of in a moment of realization, metacognition, where you start analyzing your thoughts and how you're thinking. You realize after years of doing the same things over and over that it's not working. So it's obviously something deeper, something more deep rooted, and that's where the psychology comes into play. So yeah, that's what I'd say. For me, a big part of my psychology was my beliefs to money. I came from like a poor background, so money was always tight, and that kind of thing crept into my trading. I was always taking profits early and things like that. So I had to, go back and look at these beliefs and challenge them, and try and reinstall new ones, more empowering.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it's funny. We'll go to you next, Michael, and then we'll end with you, Jared, on this first question. Michael, he said it took him years to realize this, right? And I think that's one of the things. And one of the things that the three of you guys have done with your books and your social media is you try to bring that to the forefront quicker, right? You're trying to help people cut off that years of spending time in the market and then finally getting to the point realizing that, oh, I need to actually focus on trading psychology too. So the same question to you, Michael. How can traders become better and make money with trading psychology?
Sure. So, when most people think of trading psychology, they're thinking of the emotion part of it. The way that I think of trading psychology and trading mindset is that everything starts with our beliefs. So, if we think of it in that framework of trading psychology, trading mindset, that it's about beliefs, then what part of trading don't have beliefs that are a part of it? The answer is that beliefs are everything. Beliefs are, we have beliefs about mindset and psychology. We have beliefs about analysis. We have beliefs about journaling, right? Like all these different parts of trading, they all have different beliefs associated with it. And our beliefs are like the software, the internal programming that's helping us to either take certain actions, not take certain actions. And so the more that we understand the beliefs that we have, and not only that, but the beliefs that will help us to get to the goals that we want to achieve, then we'll be able to install those beliefs and actually have those beliefs in our head and be able to take the actions that will lead us to the goals that we're after.
Oh, you're muted.
Okay. Let's get this technical stuff out of the way here. It's like my first day on the project. On the podcast. So I also want to go to you about this too, Michael, because you really you pound the pavement with this a lot. And at what point did this become a reality to you? Same thing I asked Alan. At what point did this become such a focal point, an important aspect to you in trading?
Yeah, so similar to Alan, I came up from a poor background too. Well, when I was 6 years old, my parents split. And my stepdad lost his job, and we were homeless for a few months. And it wasn't until later on that my mom and stepdad said, "You know what? You go off and live with your dad." Right. So I started to see firsthand back then how important having a certain level of income to at least keep the lights on and the coffee cup full is. After I went to go live with my dad, I saw him working very hard, and we always had enough food on the table, lights on, and everything. But I didn't see him very much because he was putting in loads and loads of overtime. And I later on, I started to realize how important time was as well. So like time with family, things like that. And I started to accumulate those kind of values. But it wasn't until much later, right? So I started my trading journey. And I started to try to accumulate wealth, build wealth, compounding all the great things that we love about trading. But it wasn't until maybe about 10 years in that I started to question the types of beliefs that I had accumulated throughout my entire childhood, and the beliefs about money, the beliefs about time, and doing things efficiently, and why, and all this. And it was in digging through those many of the beliefs that I acquired as a child that I started to see how some things were putting a ceiling over my head, and how some things started to lead to recurring patterns of behavior. And when I was able to uh, dissect those, it kind of weed the mental garden, if you will, then I was able to start to pluck out some of the weeds, find better beliefs, install them in the garden, and learn how to take care of these better mental plants, if you will.
Yeah, let's go to you now, Jared. And Jared, you come from a different background of this, right? You come from the sport side, from the poker side, and I don't know if everybody knows about the golf. When I said the sports side is, you're actually a very good golfer. You're starting to compete again, and I know from being a golfer, and how psychologically demanding it is to play that long of a round. I mean, it's crazy to be able to play at a high level. It's where the lower handicaps, I think, from the mid handicaps are always different because they seem to be more focused on every shot. We always say that guy, he's always in play, right? Or he's never not making as many mistakes as me. I may hit the ball better, I may putt better, but I'm making more mistakes than him, right? It goes back to the guy on the range, kind of. I know I'm kind of going off on this golf tangent here because I love this. But you could hit them pure on the range and you go out there and play, and you can go out there and you're just terrible, right? I mean, there's a big difference between a range player, which would be like almost a sim guy, and then he goes out there and it's live, and it's like all of a sudden. I mean, I see this a lot where I see some of these low handicaps and they come play in our money group, and I'm always like, thanks for the strokes, man. You're gonna be ready for this? And most likely they're not, because it's just a different element. They're out of it. And the poker side, I mean, obviously there's a lot there. And I just, from your background, I mean, talk to us about how you've been able to lift up traders and how trading psychology, you is coaching them and writing books on this has actually helped them become better and become better traders.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been coaching traders for about 10 years now, ever since they picked up my second poker book. But you kind of nailed it when, you said, golfers, who are better tend to make less mistakes than golfers who are a little bit worse. And we look at the idea of like, how do you make more money in trading? Well, first you got to stop losing as much money, and you can make more, from a net profit standpoint, from a P&L standpoint, by losing less. And how do you do that? Well, look at all of your repetitive errors, right? The trades that you take prematurely, right? You kind of see a position setting up and you jump in a little early, taking profit too early. The FOMO, the revenge trading, all of the big mistakes that you make, all of the repetitive mistakes that you make, they are a byproduct of your psychology. They're a byproduct of some mental and emotional flaw, guaranteed every single time. Does not matter at what level you are. Even the most, sophisticated, experienced traders, their worst mistakes are in some way influenced by some mental and emotional flaw that needs to get corrected. Because repetitive errors, right? They're just kind of stuck in something, and oftentimes you need to dig in through that. So that's kind of one side of the coin. But the other side is like, how can you make more money? You can also make more money by being able to access intuition more frequently. Now, if you are a newer trader, you've been trading for less than 1 year, do not trust your intuition. You don't have enough knowledge or experience yet to have reliable intuition. But as you get farther on in this game, that intuition can be accessed more often. And you can do that by being at a high level, being in the zone, being in flow, being in kind of a peak mental experience, whatever words you want to use to describe that. By getting into that state more often, you have greater purity in your ability to kind of sense how the market, how the price action, how your indicators are interacting with your system. And less bias is getting imprinted into the market. So your vision is a lot cleaner. Your ability to see and capitalize on opportunities is a lot better. So whether it's saving money or making more because of intuition, I think those are the two big areas where I think trading psychology comes in.
Absolutely. And I pulled a lot of notes from what all three of you guys said, and I want to go around and talk about this. But one of the things I want to stay with you, Jared, before we get back to Ellen, and it's one of those things that you talked about accessing your intuition. Newer traders don't have it. And I think this goes back to kind of why it took Ellen, myself, and Michael years to understand that trading psychology matters, because at that time we weren't trying to access our intuition because we really didn't have it. We didn't know it. We didn't have enough experience. And so we were almost just so much so rules based and almost trying to be systematic. And then when we realized that that system just wasn't generating enough for us, that we start to focus on other things to find ways to pull money out of that. But I think I want to talk about that because I think what happens along this way, along that time, and why I think trading psychology for newer traders isn't really the number one thing for them because they can't access it. But I think one of the things I think you're really great at is helping traders get to the point to be able to start access that intuition that maybe they didn't know they had. So I guess the question is, how do they start to put something together to realize at some point they could start accessing that intuition?
Yeah, I think when you get to a point where a lot of the trading mechanics become a lot more automatic, and you're able to be more systematized in just your day-to-day operations, right? It's like a business is kind of maturing, and you don't show up confused a lot of the day just about what you're even looking at, how you're making money, your edge is defined, and it's proven out to be fairly reliable in the market. I'm not saying that you've gone full time, because I work with plenty of traders who are trading on the side, whether they're swing traders or day traders who might just trade either the open or the close. But the point is that you have a degree of competency, and once you have that, it becomes a lot easier to define where your true kind of performance mental game errors are. If you're a new trader, any mental and emotional issue you have could be from your personal life that you're bringing in. It could be from past personal issues that you're bringing in that are kind of complicating your perspective. But they also could be just performance errors that haven't really been well defined enough because you don't have a strategy that can be, kind of measured against it. It's really only until you become skilled enough where you can recognize very clearly that was a mistake and that was caused by FOMO or by tilt or, some emotion. But once that happens, then you typically, as we clean out that crap, we clean out all of the misperception at certain times. We identify the deviations in our thought process that would, misinterpret the validity of a setup, or might, again, kind of want to take profit too soon or, push a trade beyond kind of what your initial target was. As you start to define what those are, you can kind of clean them out. And by default, you automatically are going to be accessing more intuition. The other thing that is really important, which I think, as you kind of get farther along in this, maybe, kind of beyond that stage, is being able to kind of distinguish like real intuition that is a cognitive conscious experience that is only generated when you're at a very high level, from emotion that is kind of masquerading as intuition, that feels justified, because anger and FOMO, any real emotion, can make you think that what you're doing that is a deviation from your strategy is justified, but it's actually emotionally based. So you have to really kind of create the differential of like, this is what authentic real intuition looks like. This is what, the BS masquerading emotion looks like. And for a lot of traders that I've experienced or worked with, there's a lot of physical tension and pain and angst that's part of the masquerading. And there's a lot more of a conscious kind of clarity, puzzle pieces kind of fitting together that would characterize intuition.
Alan, I want to move on and talk about something with you that I think is a real issue with traders when it comes to trading psychology, especially in today's day and age with social media, is hidden bias, right? You have the bulls, you have the bears, you have the macro people out there, and they're just always everyone's talking constantly, right? Everybody has an opinion. It's amazing to me how many opinions that can come out throughout a day from the macro crew, and I love them. Don't get me wrong, I love the macro crew, but there's we are so bombarded and overwhelmed with bias. And what I think it does to so many traders is it creates a hidden bias. This is bullish, that is bearish, or there's these things that are black and white, and we all know that it's just not that simple. And so, Alan, how do you kind of mask some of that, all of the social media, all of these different things that can create these hidden biases that eventually surface when you're actually going out there and trading?
Well, the best thing you can do is start with your routine. So to avoid these biases, these distractions, you should, when you're trading, it should be 100% focus. So anything that can distract you should be, put to silent, put away. So if you turn your notifications off, put your phone away, and your pure focus should just be on executing your system. So that's the number one way of avoiding biases. Simply don't have them there, out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, going back to your routine, it needs to be one that gets you into a focused state and keeps you there. So designing a routine around that avoids these distractions is going to help you avoid these biases. So I'd say, it's all about designing your routine.
But I want to stay with you for a second on this because one of the things that, I'm very much a routine person, right? I wake up, I'm doing the same things pretty much every single day, but I read a lot. I follow the news, I follow things that are going on. And so even though during the day I'm not really watching some of these things, I'll keep an eye on, some news feeds and stuff like that just in case. But I still believe that even myself, who's been doing this for a long time, creates like this hidden bias where it's like, look, I want to be bullish the market, and then it's like I have this bearish setup, and it's like I look around and I'm like, do I really want to be short here? I'm kind of bullish, and then it's like, but then you go in, and then do you pull that trigger? Do you do it? Because I think that when we talk to traders out there, even though they may say that they're not really discretionary, they're pointing and clicking. I believe that there's this little hidden bias underneath the fingertip because it prevents you from doing something, or sometimes you do something a little bit too aggressively. So I want to stay with you and say, after your years of experience, how at some point, or how do you deal with that? Just like that feeling that's coming to the surface that is almost inhibiting you from doing what potentially is wrong in the moment.
Well, I think you kind of spotted it straight away. You have awareness of it. So the first thing you can start doing is journaling, journaling these, your tendencies to biases, and then that creates the awareness. And with awareness creates, that pause between thinking and reacting. So then you can use other tricks like meditation, to help, not what's the word, not react to your thoughts and things like that, to increase that space between thought and reaction. But yeah, creating a journal of recording your biases is going to create that awareness, and the awareness is what's going to stop you from doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, Michael, we'll move to you a little bit. Let's talk about this a little bit because I think that trading psychology, I think one of the things that a lot of people out there can relate to is that hidden bias of, I feel X way about what's happening in the market, right? But then you go in and your system gives you something totally different, or you see something that you want to do, and it's really not the right move according to your system, but then you do it anyway, right? And you just do these things because they come to the surface at the moment. Because I know people say trade like a robot. It sounds easy. It doesn't work that way, because anytime we have control and access that we do to electronic trading, it's just too easy to make mistakes, and I make them. So I look at it and say, I've been doing this a long time. Actually, it was interesting. I was looking at the date today. Today is the day 24 years ago. It was the first day I stepped on the trading floor as a member. It's pretty crazy. It was on March, so kind of a sentimental day for
Happy
me.
anniversary.
It's interesting that I still do that, right? And so I know that I don't care how long. If you've been doing this for 5 minutes or 50 years, it happens. So talk a little bit more about, I think, dealing with that surfacing of those bad habits. Even we'll talk about that as well.
Sure. Well, one of the things that's helped me, that's helped a lot of the people that I coach get beyond the labels and some of the biases of I think the market's going to do this or that is excuse me, is rather than seeing yourself as the player in the arena, that you're the guy that has the spear and you're trying to go out and hunt for these trades, you're thinking of yourself as the referee, thinking of yourself as the game master, and so you're not the person in there that's trying to make something win, but it's rather the trade appears and it needs to pass X, Y, and Z criteria that you've set up in your system, your rules, whatever, to get into the arena. Great. Now you are acting as the referee to see, does this trade continue to follow the rules? If it doesn't, then you kick it out of the arena, and that's it. If it does continue to follow your rules, then it continues to play. And so your job then is to be that of the referee. Your job is and you are the person that makes the rules. You're the game master, and you can make whatever kinds of rules that will lead you to the results that you want. Well, both financially with the equity curve, and for as your rules for when you want to execute and do research and all those kinds of things too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally hear you on that. And I want to say, I want to go to Jared now. I want to talk a little bit about if we do those things that like Alan's talking about. I mean, Alan, I love Alan. He keeps things simple. He's like, listen, dude, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Don't overcomplicate this stuff. Get to your routine. You could tell he's very disciplined, right? And you know Michael, and you could tell he puts together everything. And you could tell that he's very detail oriented, you know, and he's coming in and he's ready, right? But then, you know, myself, I'm kind of a combo of the two. And I still find myself, which is the next thing I want to talk about, trading on tilt, right? I mean, this is one of those things that just happens and you're just like, how does it happen? You know, I gave back a good chunk of my year this year, kind of just like we used to call it, like kind of in the toilet bowl, where it's like you're just like in the spinning thing where it's just you keep, you know, you're just letting gains just go down the toilet and you're just like trying to stop it, but you find yourself just in this bad mode. So it's funny, we can do all these things that you know Alan does and Michael does, but then we still find ourselves on tilt. How does that happen, Jared? And like, what's the best way to like get ourselves away from that?
Well, you talk about like kind of hidden biases. I mean, there's a lot of hidden flaws. There's a lot of hidden wishes, hopes, illusions that kind of run in the background. And tilt is really just a symptom or a signal of that. So, you know, in a lot of circumstances, if you're making money, some of those flaws are not going to come out. They're not going to get exposed because they're not under the bright lights, under the pressure, right? So you talked earlier about, you know, the difference between the sim and the live market. Well, the sim isn't really trading, just like the range isn't golf, because you're not tested. So when you are tested, you know, in your case, right, a couple bad trades could just be started with a couple losses, right? I've traders that, you know, their tolerance for tilt is razor thin, right? They lose one or two trades, especially if they're in particularly sadistic ways, you know, getting stopped out by, you know, a point, and of course then races off to their target. And, you know, that feeling of injustice, there can be a feeling of entitlement. There can be a hatred of losing. There can be a really strong distaste for the inherent variance that is in the game. People are very competitive. There can be an illusion of control. I mean, there's a lot of these kind of hidden flaws, biases, et cetera, that run in the background. So when you are kind of tested, regardless of what that is, that tilt can get triggered, you know, very, very rapidly and instantaneously kind of overwhelmed. So there's one kind of fundamental principle that everybody needs to understand, which is that the part of the brain that is responsible for controlling emotions, or in this case, controlling tilt, is, you know, shut down when your emotions rise too high. So if you are in a state where you're, you know, circling the toilet bowl, one of the best things you can do is just tackle yourself and just get the F away and get a chance to just cool yourself down. Because at that point, the only thing you're going to do is really make things worse. There are some people, some traders, for whom tilt actually helps to fuel them to be at their best. They're kind of like Michael Jordan, right? Jordan was at his best when he was pissed off, and nobody, you know, could touch him. So it's not where we're saying anger is inherently bad. Anger or tilt is bad when it causes you to make a lot of boneheaded mistakes. And when you're stuck in that cycle, you have to be able to dial back your emotion enough to re-engage that part of the brain that's responsible for emotional control, thinking, planning, decision-making. All of that goes out the window when emotions, including tilt, are too high.
Yeah, and you know, I want to go to you, Alan, about something that I think, you know, all of us here can relate to this, and I think a lot of people out there in the audience as well. And just want to take a quick pause and remember, everybody, this podcast is brought to you by FTSE Russell and TradeStation. To learn more about FTSE Russell and the Russell 2000, go to FTSERussell.com, and also go check out TradeStation. They've got a lot of cool stuff on that platform. I use it all the time. You can trade futures, options, even crypto on there. And we get 50% off your brokerage fees if you go to tradestation.com/Anthony. And Alan, what I think that a lot of us can relate to is, and you said this early on, is like, you didn't come from money, right? I think a lot of us get into trading because obviously we want to make more money. I mean, we come from a place where, look at, I was the guy who I would never have made this kind of money because I didn't have the Ivy League education. I didn't even go to college. I didn't have all of these different things. I didn't have that in my life, right? And, my parents couldn't afford to send me to school. They couldn't do certain things. And I just didn't grow up in a neighborhood that was, everyone was going to college and getting all these great corporate jobs. So I found my way into trading, and I saw an opportunity there to make more money than I ever anticipated. And one of the things that Michael talks about a lot is that, it's not just about getting to the point of making money. It's like developing wealth. And one of the things that I really struggle with as a trader is when I finally started to make some money, that all of a sudden I felt guilty about it. Right. And I looked around and I'm like, okay, giving this friend money, doing this, spending money on things, really having no control over my spending. And then all of a sudden I found myself, it was like I was only trading well when I was trying to get to that level of success. And then when you get to that level of success and you've made a little bit of money, keeping it now and like growing on it, it was so difficult for me. And I think a lot of times I was just like throwing money back at the market and just doing things randomly because my mind just wasn't wrapped around the situation of where I was. Talk about this a little bit, Alan. In the growth of you as a trader, and you make some money, not coming from a background where you make money, how has it been for you to be able to not only get to that level of success that maybe you never thought you'd have, but to be actually able to sustain it?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, it's not. It takes a lot. It took me a lot of work. So like everyone has like a self-image that's based on like the previous experiences, whether it be good, bad, and like money beliefs. If you come from a poor background, these get instilled in you. So it takes a lot of reprogramming yourself. You have to change your language and like reinstall new belief systems. You have to challenge these beliefs, find evidence against them, and then you reinstall new beliefs. So a big part of what helped me was using visualizations, because what I learned about using visualizations is the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between an experience and a vividly imagined one. So you can use visualizations to really help reprogram new self-image. So that is something that I incorporated hugely. I got it from Psycho-Cybernetics. I don't know if anyone's ever read it, but that's where I got it from. And that's what really helped me to, reprogram my belief system. So I'd say visualizations and meditation were the things that really helped me to reinstall these new empowering beliefs. So yeah, it takes a long while, but you can get there.
And let me ask you this question specifically. What did you find more challenging? Getting to a level of success or sustaining a level of success?
I'd probably say the trying to get successful was probably the hardest and the longest, but I do know what you mean. Like the worst stages where you do hit a ceiling that you've never been past before. And but yeah, I'd probably say that the first was the hardest for me, getting there. But staying there, yeah, you know yourself, you know what you can do, so you can break through that eventually.
Michael, let's move to you, because you talk a lot about this, right? You're really big on saying to traders, look, you're a trader, then you start building on that wealth. This is how you grow your wealth, right? And maybe I'll just, pose the same question to you. How did you get to that point? How did you deal with getting to a level of success versus sustaining a level of success?
Yeah, so there's to kind of piggyback off of part of what Alan was saying. I think that there's a level of imposter syndrome that comes up, that you're striving towards a certain goal, and as we're striving towards this goal, it seems like mission impossible, right? Where we're trying to do all these different things. We're working. The journey is so difficult. We're going through the hero's journey, if you will. Well, we have our story arc, and then we get to the goal, and we achieve the goal, and then it's like, now what?
Yeah.
Right? And so it's almost like if we don't have that answer, then what can happen is that we start to self-sabotage, to kind of replay the same thing over again, to give ourselves that new a new goal, if you will. So part of what the solution for me has been, what's the next goal, right? Like, I finally achieved a certain level of success. Well, now what? Well, what do I want to do? So figuring out that answer for those of us that have gotten to that have hit a goal, that's part of it. Figuring out what the next goal is, whether that we've achieved the level of success and now we want to take the money that we've made and start to do something with that money, whether that's going to be for personal, whether it's going to be family, whether it's going to be to serve a community. There's a lot of good that we could do with the money that we get, the time and those kinds of things. What are we going to do with this knowledge? Are we going to keep it to ourselves? Are we going to help serve community, like, well, what all of us really are doing here? It's where we start to think of the bigger purpose, and how we can serve. I think that we're innately built to serve and to help others. And I think that that's at least part of why each of us are here on the show.
I totally agree with you. And you know what's interesting is that, Alan said getting there to that first goal was obviously more difficult. I think all of us would almost agree that getting to that first goal, that first level of achievement that we dream about, and it's that fight to get there. I would definitely say that was harder for me as well. But the one thing, Jared, is that when I got to that level of success and I started to have a pullback from that level of success, my best year in trading, I had all of these breakthrough things happen to me. The next year was all of the breakthrough things to the opposite side. It was my worst year. It was my worst day. And I just felt like this self-sabotage was happening. In some ways I was telling my friends, as I look back, and it was like a cry for help, almost like I don't know what to do. Michael said, have that second goal. But for someone like Alan or Michael or even you, Jared, it's like when we grow up, we don't know what to do with money as we make it. And I think the psychological thing that's so difficult is that when you start to make more money as a trader, and I see people say this all the time, well, if you can make $200 a day trading, 2-lot micros, eventually you can make 20,000 or 2,000 a day because you just add more to it. It just doesn't work that way because you're testing yourself as you're going along. So it's like, to me, I put on a $200 position at that time. It felt like a lot, right? And then you get to 2,000, that feels like a lot. So you're dealing with something more. It almost is back to like the feeling that like of being in the game. A lot of what you guys are talking about, you can go there and practice that, and it sounds great. Oh, if I can make 200 a day, I can make 2,000 a day. And why doesn't it work that way? And so I think that's why sustaining success becomes like an emotional heartbreak on you, because you basically say, I put all this time in, I got to this level. Now it's not that easy to actually sustain it and build on it.
So the way that I would kind of frame this is, in the ascent upwards to reaching that goal, your focus is generally singularly pointed in that direction. And once you achieve it, your mind can very easily start to deviate, especially if money is the thing that you are striving for. And Daniel Pink is a great author and wrote a book called Drive. And it just shows how common it is for people to kind of graduate beyond money as being their primary motivator. And I know Michael kind of was touching upon this, is like, once you kind of get past that point, you do need to redefine, more of what you're after. And it could be more money, but it also could mean excellence, striving for greatness, striving for greater introspective and growth. One of the things I've worked on with a trader who's kind of in this stage now is like rediscovering what they actually love about trading, that there's some, kind of unique pieces about it that really just kind of check all the boxes for him. It's the the love of it feeling like a treasure hunt, just loving the markets and loving price action and the curiosity of it and the complexity of it and the scale of it is really exciting for this particular trader. So, really understanding kind of all the reasons for why you do this thing can be part of it, setting goals. But the other thing is that as your mind starts to get a little bit wider, those underlying flaws and biases and illusions and wishes can come to the surface. And so you kind of get tested in a different way. And I'm not a believer in the term self-sabotage. I think it implies a degree of self-control, as if you are consciously undercutting your own performance. And I don't think that's what it is. I think what it is that there are these hidden biases, wishes, illusions, etc., and they are what trip you up. And it's in the getting tripped up that you have the opportunity to discover what it is that is actually either tripping you up or holding you back from being able to climb either to a higher peak or to a different peak entirely.
Alan, I want you to touch. I want you to chime in here a little bit about this. Talk a little bit about what you heard Michael, Jared, and myself talk about that, like getting to that levels of success, sustaining it, and then building on that, and how psychologically difficult it really is.
Yeah, there were two things that I picked up on there. So going to Michael's, I'd say, like you said, the goal, like the why is important. You need to always have a strong why for what you're doing. And then discipline becomes a byproduct of a strong why. And you know what I mean? You have the motivation to do what it is you want to do. You'll make the correct decisions. So finding that root of what makes you want to do it, that's important. Find that strong why. And your why can always change. Your why from when you started won't be the same from when you're successful. So getting that goal right is important. And then the other thing I picked up on was when you said you had that success and you gave it all back. So that says to me that it was some sort of kind of deep-rooted belief that you're not worthy, So understanding this, getting to the root and, dissecting it is important. So, yeah, that's probably what I'd say on that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're all saying here when it comes to trading psychology, one of the things that becomes so important in your growth as a trader, right? We're talking about mastering trading psychology here, is self-awareness in the moment. I've tweeted about this a lot. I said trading is an in-the-moment business. A lot of people talk a big game afterwards, or they talk to themselves and say, I should have done this or I could have done that. But where the real money is made in this business is in the moment. That is the reality of it, right? I mean, all of everything happens so fast, right? You can be prepared for everything. I mean, unless you're just working limit orders all the time, and that's just what you do, and you're pretty much almost systematic, that's just a different type of thing. But if you're actively trading and managing money, I mean, there's a lot going on, right? You're making a lot of decisions, you're watching a lot of things. And when they get to those areas of importance to you, how you act in those moments, if it's going your way or if it's going against you, and the different things that surface, and instantly recognizing that self-awareness in those moments as time goes by. And I think all of us talked about this, that where you really grow as a trader is when you get to that point of recognizing it quicker and removing yourself from making those mistakes. Making less mistakes is kind of full circle what we talked about earlier today. As we start to run a little bit thin on time here, we've got about 10 minutes left. And I'm seeing some things in chat. I want to go into chat a little bit. It was funny. Yeah, I'm actually. So first, I want to address this. Somebody said, Anthony, you had an aunt who lent you 10,000, and you had a friend who could lend you 50,000. You had it good compared to most, right? And I think that looks so good, right? When someone writes something like that, and they don't realize that, like, now I'm a 19, 20, or I was a 21-year-old kid who had $60,000 in debt trying to make it back in trading, right? And so I was going to go and make a job for 40,000. And then I'd be paying them back probably still to this day, right? I mean, who knows what happens, right? And I think one of the things I want to talk about is, and this kind of goes back to what Dan put in here, and I think Dan has really been through the ringer and understands this a lot. I've had good conversations with him. He says the bigger the losses, like as you grow as a trader, right? As you get bigger, it's always thinking about making more money, right? If I can make 200, I can make 2,000. I talked about that. But if you're up 200, to going to down 200 to down 2,000, it's a little different, right? Even though you have more money, you're now dealing with a heavier punch on the body. And it's not easier to make back bigger losses. And I think one of the things that why I kind of brought up both of those things is that when you are in a drawdown, right? how do you deal with that? Because this is where I think trading psychology becomes such an important part for me, because I feel that when I'm in drawdowns is like, I just have to remove myself from it. Like I've learned over the years that I am recognizing quicker and quicker when I am just, it doesn't matter how good the setup is. I'm just in a bad place. I'm in a funk. And I talked about it earlier with the toilet bowl. And this year I gave back like 20 something percent of my gains. And it was just like, it really should have been less, but I stopped it to where it should have been even more. Right. So I've kind of like, you find this balance. You're never perfect, but you're kind of, you get better at it. Right. And so I think we go around the table here and we talk about how much trading psychology matters in those times where you owe money, you owe rent. You know, I talked about I borrowed money, or all of a sudden you got bigger and now you've got bigger losses. Let's start with you, Michael. He's muted.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry, I had a coughing
No
fit
worries.
earlier and I muted myself. Anyhow, so I believe that mindset and psychology are 100% of trading, that we have beliefs about everything, and that so you have beliefs about trading money, you have beliefs about your systems, you have beliefs about everything that's going to be associated with trading. So, what do you do when you find yourself in a drawdown or you have a string of trades? I think that part of it is understanding the stats of your system. So, well, what does that mean? Well, if you understand what your system is supposed to produce, and you understand over how many trades your system can have, you can calculate the statistics of, well, if I take 100 trades and my win rate is 45%, then what is the losing streak that I can anticipate over 100 trades? And we did this this study. Well, we've got the spreadsheet, and over any given 100 trades, you could expect to have 8 losses in a row. So if I understand that, given this system and the stats, that I can have 8 losses in a row, then I have a benchmark to look at that says that, okay, well, I've had 3 losses in a row. That's within the parameters of the system, and then continue to trade the system. When I get beyond a certain number of losses or drawdown that's outside the parameters that I've already tested, then that tells me, oh, this is outside and something else is up. But if I'm trading my system and I'm trading my system well, then I can figure out what is normal versus what's abnormal per the stats.
It's like that question I ask myself every time I get into a drawdown. Is it me? Is it the market environment? Or is it my strategy? I've tweeted endlessly about this. And I think that if you can't identify that, that's when you start getting in that really bad funk, and where you just kind of just have no idea how to get out of it, because you're not recognizing what the issue is. So, Alan, we're talking about dealing with drawdowns here. What is the trading psychology advice to a trader out there to help deal with drawdowns? I actually think one of the questions that Rob put out there, which just kind of ties right into the same thing, is how do we get out of this cycle of making these stupid mistakes, right? Go to you, Alan.
Oh, to me, sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, drawdowns. So like Michael was saying, like having the data is important. So you got something to reference, like your win streaks, your lose streaks. You understand how your strategy works. That's what's going to give you confidence in drawdowns. So that's definitely very true. I agree with that. With drawdowns, not everyone wants to do this, but if you know yourself, you can have limits in place. So if you know you're prone to getting on tilt after a certain amount of losses, you can, cut your trade frequency in half. Because it's all about keeping your confidence intact when you're in a drawdown. There's nothing, don't see it as emasculating that you're trading smaller when you're in a drawdown. It should be empowering, because you're doing what most can't. So yeah, the first thing you can do is halve your risk. The second thing is to reduce your frequency. So you're only taking the best setups, because the market's going through some sort of transition phase where your strategy isn't in tune with it at the moment. So you're increasing your chances of the strategy working by going for the very best setups. And then lastly, as well, if you're in that frequency where everything just feels like a grind, I feel like that's what you're going to attract. That's just what you're going to get more of. So one of the first things you can do is just simply take time off, get away from the charts and then come back when you're balanced. So I think those 3 things, well, 4 things if you include Michael with the reference to data, what's going to keep you strong during a drawdown. So halving your risk, take time off, reduce the frequency, and have the data to reference, I'd say.
Yeah, and those are all great things because it all comes back to, once again, self-awareness in the situation. Because someone like me, I'm pretty aggressive, right? And I know a lot of you guys out there are pretty aggressive, right? And so, like, how do you know when all of a sudden to start laying off that aggression, right? Do you do it early enough? Is it too late? I mean, I'm a scaler and I'm scaling in and out aggressively. Some of you might be trading the same contract size all the time. So you say to yourself, well, I'm regularly trading this contract size. So how do I know when to I just start cutting size? These are all the things that you have to do through analytics, right? And they're either analytics of yourself, the situations, or the strategy environment, right? Or the market environment, the strategy. And so, Jared, when we come to you, I mean, I know you probably deal with this a lot. I'm assuming you do when you come to traders. A lot of times, I know myself, anytime I'm looking for a coach or something, there's 2 times I look for it. One is when I'm doing really well and I'm like, okay, I want some coaching. I'm going to spend some money, or I'm just trading really bad. And I'm like, listen, I just need help because I am just right now, I'm pissing money away. And so, you kind of get in those 2 points where you're like, yeah, I got to go and make a move with somebody. So I'm sure you see people in some of these almost extreme moments, I would call it. Dealing with drawdowns. How do you talk to traders and say, look, this is how you should be going about dealing with a drawdown?
Yeah, and you're right. I'd say it's closer to 98% of my new clients come to me when they're struggling, not when they're doing really well. Although the latter is a lot more fun. And this is true of poker players too, right? The variance in these operations is so great that these short-term fluctuations are just inherent. And I think the problem that a lot of traders get into is that they're unprepared to deal with another drawdown, as if it's suddenly somehow something that they're not going to experience again. So I'm just very much of a proactive kind of person, right? If you're going to deal with drawdowns well, it is really dependent on how well prepared you are for the next one. So if you're in one now, the best thing you can do is kind of study the patterning that you go through in these drawdowns. What are the patterns of the mistakes you make, the patterns of the emotions that you experience? They happen again and again and again, drawdown over drawdown. Sometimes they get worse and worse over time as the scar tissue kind of builds up, as maybe you get farther from your end goals, as maybe you're kind of climbing higher and the actual monetary value is greater. But the reality is that you have to spend time, what I call kind of mapping your pattern. I think the term self-awareness, and you guys have talked about it, is very apt. I would take it maybe one step farther and say we have to create recognition. And the difference between recognition and awareness is you're not just aware of what's happening, you're connecting the dots between what is happening now with outcomes that are probabilistically going to occur in the future, right? If I'm in this kind of headspace and if I'm beginning to experience some frustration, the odds are pretty great that if this next trade goes south, I am going to revenge trade and just fire off 3 trades in a row. And, God help me, I might get lucky and pull myself out of it, and I might not. But creating that kind of recognition of what is to come almost creates like a stock chart for your own emotional state. And being able to kind of map that clearly allows you to take action more frequently and more often and kind of head off some of the bigger problems. And do what Michael said, right? Stabilizing confidence, I think, is a really, really important thing. And one thing that you can do to do that is grade all of your trades, right? So you can look at it from the statistical standpoint, but the statistics don't often kind of create the qualitative understanding of how precise was that trade relative to your system, and actually keep like a visual record of the number of A trades that you took, how much of them have actually paid off, the number of B or C trades you've taken. I think kind of seeing that visual, because if you have had a lot of what you would define as A trades, or even if you took B trades that you executed well, and you're in a drawdown, you can retain confidence knowing that you are controlling what you can control. But if that's not the case, then you got to kind of get your proverbial shit together before you can get back on the right side of things here.
Yeah, I think that everybody that comes into trading only thinks about the upside to start, right? And so therefore you're only planning for, making money, right? I mean, you know that you put money in your account and you are somewhat acceptance of the loss that's coming forward, right? I mean, I think there definitely is that, but you don't think about the drawdown. You know, if I have 3, 4, 5 trades in a row that are losing, you think about that one trade, and then as they start to accumulate, you're like, all of a sudden, you know, here I am, right? And it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And this is not 9 to 5 corporate America, right? Where we make the same money every day, every week, every month. That is so challenging on a trader because you really can't plan on when the drawdown is going to come. You can't plan on when your great days are going to come. But the only thing you can do is plan to know that they are probably going to come. You know, the drawdowns are probably coming for sure, but the upsides you don't really know is either. And I think that's one of the things why it takes us years to really understand that trading psychology matters so much, is because as we start to get, you know, more and more time and experience in the market, different things start to happen to us that surface, and we're like, how do I deal with them? You know, and it sounds so easy when you first look at trading, but there's just, it's so complex. There's so many things that happen. Michael, I see you had your hand up like you want to say something.
Yeah, I'm like chomping at the bit over here to rip off. There's been so many great things that everybody said, and I loved so much what Jared had said too. Well, when I'm thinking through this particular problem, I think of it like this, right? Let me know if you could see this here. I see it like a Venn diagram, where there's the system, there's the market, then there's you. And the way that we can size is right there in the center, right? So it's this idea of progressive exposure, and there's these 3 parts of the market or the 3 parts of how we're going to interact with the market, how the market's performing, how our system's performing, and then what's our actual performance. And those things combined are going to help us figure out, well, should we be betting heavy? Should we be betting somewhere in the middle? Should we be betting extra light? So when we're thinking of it in that terms, and we're starting to think, well, my performance has just been absolutely horrendous, well, then we should be sizing smaller. If we're performing well, but we're monitoring the market, we're monitoring our system, and the conditions aren't quite right like that. Like I see a setup, but the setup isn't the A-level setup that Jared was talking about, but we're maybe seeing like a C-level setup. Well, then we shouldn't be betting very heavy on that either. So we're monitoring all 3 things. Now, if the market conditions are great, we're seeing great setups, and our performance is great, well, then we should be betting heavier, and if we're using progressive exposure, we can then use the profits that we've had on the earlier trades while we were trading smaller to finance the additional risk. And so I thought that that's a practical way that we could do it. I actually go into that a bit deeper in the trading mind wheel.
Yeah, as we close out today, I think, you know, I want to we'll go around to all of you guys and go over your books and what is the reason why people should go and get them to help them become better traders through trading psychology. We'll start with you, Michael.
Sure. So the trading mind wheel, what's the purpose of it? Well, why did I write this book to begin with? I think that there's the beliefs are a part of all different parts of trading. And when I was learning how to trade, and when I finally turned that corner 10 years in, the thing that I started to find out about is that there's all these different parts of trading that are needed in order to be successful. And I started to learn about one. I started to learn about analysis. Then I started to learn about trade management. It wasn't later on until I started to learn about psychology. And then later on after that, I started to learn about testing. And at the very end of it, when I finally started to put all the pieces together, it's like, wow, there's a lot of different skills that are needed for these things. And not only that, I kind of poo-pooed some of the other skills because I didn't think that they were necessary. So part of the idea of the book is that, hey, there's these core skills that pretty much everybody that I studied from O'Neill to Minervini, to Tharp, to Livermore, to all these people, so many people in the Jack Schwager series too, Market Wizards, is that there's certain skills that are needed, and when we can obtain a proficiency in each of these core skills, then it's like having a fully inflated tire, a fully inflated wheel that can help us roll better. If we are lacking in certain skills, then it's almost like we're trying to roll down the path of success with a square tire, and it's not going to work very well. So that was that's the purpose of the trading mind wheel, to give these to highlight these skills, to tell the mindsets behind them, how they're interconnected, and that at the core of it all is psychology, is mindset, is beliefs, belief systems.
Yeah, and the trading mind wheel, we're going to be you, myself, and many others on April 4th. So be sure to sign up on that. We're going to be doing a whole discussion on that. And so you guys can learn more about that. Just check out our Twitter feeds for that. Michael, before I let you go, what's your Twitter feed for everybody?
Sure. Michael G Lamothe. Michael G Lamothe. That's on Twitter, Instagram, pretty much every social media platform, Michael G Lamothe.
So closing statements for you, Alan, then we'll end with you, Jared. Closing statements for today. Just bring it all together for us, Alan. Like I said, I love your simplicity. I love your tweets. You pound the pavement on simplicity, but also very disciplined, right? So close the traders out today with how trading psychology can help them become a better trader and reasons to go pick up your book.
So the understanding of your emotions and behavior and how it can affect your trading is going to be paramount to your trading journey. So to stop yourself getting in your own way, you've got to learn psychology, your own psychology. So yeah, I've wrote a book, the Blueprint to Trading Psychology. It's I written it like a blueprint, so something you can always reference. So whatever trading problem you're going through, it should be in there, because it's something that I've experienced myself, from beliefs to probabilistic thinking, even down to your routine, how to get your psychology in an optimal state. So yeah, you can find me at the Trader Divergent on Twitter, my website, thedivergenttrader.com.
Hey, guy speaks from the heart, everybody. Definitely go and check it out and follow him on Twitter. He's awesome. Jared, my brother, you've been on the show a bunch of times. You and I have had so many great conversations. Close it out today for us. Same thing I talked to the other guys about, trading psychology. How does it make traders better? And talk to us a little bit about what traders can find when they go to get your book.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer that trading psychology matters, and it matters to different degrees at different stages of your career, right? If you're in kind of a funk, it's probably going to matter more, but it also could be, somewhat systematic as you maybe adapt your strategy. And certainly early on in your trading career, trading psychology matters more outside of trading than it does within it, because you're bringing what you bringing things from life into trading. But trading psychology is basically your way to execute what you've learned. It's almost like kind of buying insurance. You spend all this time developing a system and a strategy, and then it kind of goes kaput because you can't execute. And that's generally a psychological problem, an emotional problem, a mental problem, which again is kind of like buying insurance. So I think that's a big part of what my book is really all about. The mental game of trading, right? It's sort of a system that you can use, much like Alan's book, a repeatable process to kind of diagnose and fix the most common mental and emotional issues that affect traders, right? Greed, fear, anger, or tilt, and then, of course, overconfidence and lacking confidence. And then I list discipline issues last, because a lot of traders think that they have discipline problems when they don't realize that any one of those other emotions are actually forcing their hand to violate their discipline. And so being able to kind of develop a full picture of your own kind of emotional mental profile is what the book is designed to do, so that you can then systematically dig in and find the underlying flaws, biases, illusions, wishes that are kind of running around in the background. And, in the book, I talk about 40 of them, right? The illusion of control, the illusion of emotional control, hindsight bias, confirmation bias, perfectionism, hating variance. There's a lot of these things that are running around in the background. And if you can find out what they are and fix them, then you can kind of fundamentally upgrade the way that you are perceiving the market, and stop bringing bias into the market and being kind of more sponge-like, right? Kind of absorbing the action and able to respond to it, much like Alan said, right? To be that referee. So I'm at Jared Tendler on Twitter. JaredTendler.com is my website, and I've got a lot of free resources, including worksheets and a free intuition ebook that you can find there.
Everybody out there, I see a ton of you stayed tuned in for the entire show. These three guys are great, and you can learn so much from them, and you're going to learn something different from each one of them to help you really build your book of trading psychology, your own book maybe someday that you write about trading psychology. So I highly recommend you follow them on Twitter and check them out. Remember, today's podcast was brought to you by TradeStation and FTSE Russell. Shout out to everybody that tuned in today. Like I said, we had everybody stay pretty much throughout the whole show. That was awesome. If you guys could just give us that thumbs up and hit that like button and reshare this on your social media or anywhere you want to reshare it so people can go and become better traders through mastering trading psychology. Remember, this is recorded and it will be on everywhere where audio is available for your podcast. And thank you to everybody that tuned in. Once again, guys, Alan, Jared, Michael, you guys were awesome. I think we have to do this one again with you guys. This was great. We didn't even touch on the fear and other stuff. We can go on and on about this stuff, but you guys are awesome. And thank you so much.
Cheers,
Good luck with you all.
Cheers, everybody. See ya.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you for listening to Futures Radio Show. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Never miss an episode. Go to anthonycrudele.com and get on our email list for show notifications and for free content that is exclusively for subscribers. Also on anthonycrudele.com, you will find tons of videos and education on trading futures, options, and crypto. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Opinions expressed are solely my own and my guests, and they do not express the views or opinions of my sponsors. Futures Radio Show is produced by Crudele Productions.